For those of you who do not know, Phantom Abyss came out several years ago in early access from Devolver Digital, and it essentially is or was a roguelite game where you try and get through an Aztec-looking temple filled with traps and phantoms trying to chase you down and catch you. And you would essentially go through the randomly generated dungeons until you finally died or you got to the center, which took about, I don't know, about 10 or so levels that you had to get through. And each attempt would net you a new whip with special abilities attached to them. Ones that make you jump higher or slide faster or just run faster in general, stuff like that. Very akin to what you would see in like the opening to Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Indiana Jones is running away from boulders and moving around spike traps. And obviously there's a lot more to it than that, even in the base game that was in early access, but that's the general gist of the early access version of the game. Now, finally, after a couple years, I believe this game originally came out in like 2020 or something like that, we have version 1.0, which is the official release that came out on like January 26th or something like that. And I've been playing it pretty regularly for the past couple days now. And I have not, full discretion, I have not completely finished the game, but I am on the final set of levels that they made for it. And I feel like I kind of understand the general vibe of what they are going for here. So instead of being dumped into a random assortment of courses, there are about 8 courses that per difficulty level, minus the one that's all the way at the top, for you to go through and obtain new whips and stuff like that. At the end of each course, there is a idol for you to get. Some of them are pretty fun, like the little crocodile or the panda. Other ones are kind of more basic, like the stone soldiers and a sword and a hammer. Just. But they're pretty cool. I think they're modeled pretty well. The main difference between the early access version and the official release is that the courses are kind of pre-made for each whip that you are unlocking. So each time you go into a course, you do use the whip that you're going to unlock. One of the first ones you do nets you more coins from chests. So there's a lot more chests in the courses, that allow you to buy different blessings that give you more upgrades or maybe not upgrades, but just kind of more. It still has that roguelite flair where you lose your blessings by the end of the level, but you get like the other whips, you get their blessings of those whips, if that makes any sense. And so yeah, you go through the course, and if you get to the end, you get the whip, you get the idol, and then you also can talk to this lady who's trapped in there with you. She's like a purple phantom instead of being a blue phantom like everyone else in the game. The disappointing thing, though, is that the story is kind of shoehorned in on this one. The purple ghost phantom lady doesn't have voice acting associated with her, which is kind of disappointing. And she's in the game a lot. She shows up in levels and, of course, in the hub area where you're choosing what level to go into. The main plot of this game is to release this Aztec god or whatever who is chained down in the middle. And you essentially need to get the idols to break the chains that are holding them down. Once you get 3 idols in each set of levels, the chain will break, and you can move on to the next levels if you want to. Or you can mess around in the levels that you have. You get coins, not just gold coins in each level to buy blessings, but you also get these upgrade tokens as well. Each one is color-coded to the rarity. So you have a common, a rare, an ultra-rare, and a legendary. And of course, that is used to upgrade your skills that cross over between levels. So those are permanent upgrades that you get, like extra health, extra dash speed, extra whip length, stuff like that. So the main gist of the game, I mean, even though the levels are curated for the whips, they still do have a randomness factor because not every time you go into a level, it's not going to have the same layout. Even if it can be similar at times, or even have the same pathways at times, it is a random assortment of levels that you are going through, and you use the whip to hoist yourself up. It can also disable spinning traps like blades and stuff like that. You have a dash move, which is not necessarily a dodge move, but it just allows you to dash forward really fast. There is a dodge mechanic, but it is a random percentage. Like, oh, you have a 10% chance of dodging every trap. That's one of the upgrades you can get. So the dodge isn't like a button you press. It's just a random chance that it might happen. It's one of those ones that I upgraded pretty quickly, but I still don't see the effects as much as I would like to with how many legendary coins I had to spend for it. Um, and yeah, that's the main thing of the game is just you're going through these levels, you're dodging traps, bombs, dart shooters, spinning blades, spinning pathways, fire, lava, falls. And then also there is the guardian of the temple who is chasing you, and there's three different guardians. One follows you around every so often, and if he gets close to you, he explodes, causing massive damage. Another one shoots poison balls at you that emit a poison cloud for some time. Another one shoots laser beams at you every so often, and they are a hindrance, especially later on in the more challenging stuff. They actually set them up to appear at certain points that are like stop gaps essentially, or places where you need to be perfect or else the guardian's going to catch up to you and they're going to do some stuff to you. Or maybe you're being greedy and you're trying to get a treasure chest that's kind of off the beaten path. Well, now they're going to spawn the guardian that spits poison at you in the narrow pathway that you need to go to get to the treasure chest. So, they definitely put a lot of challenging things mixed in with the traps and stuff like that. A lot of crazy stuff happening. Inside of each level, you can get to a shrine, and sometimes that shrine will have something very helpful for you, like extra health, or it'll make the guardian spirit go away. But they are hidden in the maps usually, so you have to kind of go off the beaten path to find them for the most part. Right now, I am in the legendary trials, legendary levels. And they live up to the name. They're long, they're difficult. There's only 3 sections to them, but those sections take forever to get through, and they're very difficult. I have like 8 hearts. I've leveled up my health to have 8 hearts, and I'm pretty much down to my last heart by the time I get through to the last level, if I get there. Or the last part of the level, I should say, if I get there. And yeah, that is that's a bit of a skill issue. Don't get me wrong, but the levels are difficult. Like the layouts of the traps and stuff like that just really get super intricate and very tedious at times. Trying to perfectly make your way through an area, and the legendary area has all new traps, all new layouts, all new visual design, which is a little bit of a learning curve getting into that because the rest of the levels, they're all relatively the same. It's an Aztec looking, it's got the spike traps and the whatever, and then you get to this last batch of levels, and it's all like, crazy colors, technicolors, and slime, and rotating platforms, and these new things you can grapple onto that give you an extra grapple point. And it's very, like I said, it's kind of a big learning curve because the rest of the game is pretty straightforward in its design, and then you get to this last set of levels and it's like crazy. The levels get crazy with new stuff that you got to get used to. So I am still working through that, but I don't think that the game has anything else to offer that's going to really sway my rating of the game. So that's why I want to, review it now and get it out of the way. Because I am still working on Prince of Persia as it is right now, and I should get a final review out for that next week. I'm about 75% through that game. But Phantom Abyss, I figured I'm fairly close to the end. I just have to get through these legendary temples, which may take me a while because they are difficult. They're not a walk in the park. So I just wanted to kind of talk about the game in a final review form because I pretty much have seen everything that the game has to offer at this point. Would I recommend this game? Yes, I think it's a very good runner kind of game. It's challenging at times. It's got that very fun vibe to it. It's kind of like Meet Your Maker, if you remember that game from last year, where you kind of build these like trap houses. Except everything is a little bit more curated, of course. It's not user generated, but it would be cool to see like a user generated map type thing be put into the game. I feel like that might be kind of cool eventually down the road, maybe in a later update or something like that, maybe as DLC. I would definitely like to see something like that because as it stands, the version 1.0 version doesn't have a lot to do. There is the daily trials which rotate out every day, so there's a new configuration every day, which is nice. But other than that, it actually has, I would say, it has about the same amount of content because you do unlock all the whips that you would originally get in the early access anyway. But it just feels like less content because the levels aren't as long or as winding. And the daily one, it is more reminiscent of the early access version, but it still doesn't give me exactly what I want from the experience. I will say having the version 1.0 come out, having the actual release come out, has made me go back and play it, and I've actually had a really good time with it. There is some frustrating moments here and there. I feel like some of the areas are just way too meticulously designed to, you need to be like pin perfect with your accuracy, which can be very difficult at times, especially with how loose the controls are in this game. I'm playing with mouse and keyboard, and sometimes I feel like something I'm off by a hair, and it just completely ruins my run, so I have to restart or just allow myself to die. The whip can be a little bit inconsistent at times when you're grappling at locations. You press right click to aim it, and you press left click to fire it off. And sometimes I need to do that really quickly, and the game doesn't register that I've already hit the right click and then the left click. And I know that I'm doing it right. I know I'm doing it right, and my whip just will not latch on to anything. I'll just do the regular whip animation, which can be a bit frustrating, especially when you're doing so good. And there's some sections where you have like the guardian who's following you really closely and you can't mess up, and what will happen sometimes is you'll fall into the abyss and get respawned back at the start of that section, and the guardian will be right there and immediately hurt you right after you spawn back in. Those sections that can get really frustrating at times too. And I don't know how they would fix that, whether they just kind of reset the guardian or I don't know. But it is a frustrating thing, especially when you're having such a good run, just to have it all ruined because you accidentally fell. You lose a quarter of a heart, and then the guardian is right there because he was following you, and you get hit because you can't escape him because you spawn directly into him. It can get a little bit frustrating here and there, and the later levels definitely you see some of the cracks showing for the controls because you need to do things a lot more quickly and with a lot more precision, and sometimes the game doesn't keep up with you almost in a way, especially if you have the upgrade for running faster. You can actually buy that from a blessing thing inside the levels, and a lot of these levels aren't designed for that quick run. So they want you to be moving a little bit slower to kind of get the timing of the traps right. And when you're moving too fast, the game can't keep up with you. And it's one of those things. It's like, okay, all right, I understand, but why? And a lot of the whip, like blessings, I guess, the special whip abilities are good. There's only a couple that I would say don't matter in the long run, but a lot of them are good, and they do actually help. And I like how they designed each of these temples around the unique properties of each whip. I think that is very nice. I think they did a good job with that. So all in all, it's Phantom Abyss 1.0 version 1.0 is still really fun. Has some frustrating moments. Maybe doesn't have as much as I was hoping for in terms of a full release. There's some things from the early access that I would like to see back, but all in all, I think I'm going to land on a 4 out of 5. Still very good, still very fun, and it's definitely a game that you should try out, or if you already have the early access version, maybe re-download it and try out the full release. So I think that it's definitely worth going back to and trying out, and I've been having a blast with it. So yeah, if you want to, check out Phantom Abyss version 1.0. I think it's pretty good. Thank you for listening to the final review.